A new Israeli aggression into the Palestinian West Bank killed a teenager during an attack in the Tulkarm camp. The Cuban government continues to achieve social justice goals despite the U.S. economic blockade imposed against the Cuban people. And in Ecuador, Vice President Veronica Abad denounces a coup d'etat by President Noboa that threatens democracy. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Palestine, a new Israeli aggression killed a teenager during an attack by the occupation forces on the Tulkarm camp in the occupied West Bank. The minor, identified as Fatih Saed Salem, was shot by a Zionist sniper in the Al-Haraida neighborhood. Israeli regime soldiers then prevented ambulances and medical equipment from reaching the wounded kid, opening fire to force them to retreat. The Zionist regime stormed Tulkarm on Tuesday with several vehicles, including two bulldozers, which carried out demolition on public and private property such as houses, shops, and shelters. According to a statement issued by the Gaza Health Ministry, the Israeli Zionist army killed 58 people and wounded 86 others during the past 24 hours. The document specifies that all the victims were civilians and more than half of them are women and children who were killed in what the ministry described as horrible and brutal crimes. With the latest figures, the authorities announced that the number of people killed in Palestine since October 7th last year stands at 45,317, while the number of wounded has reached 107,713. An Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in court in Tel Aviv on Monday to take the stand again in his long-running corruption trial. Netanyahu will answer charges of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in 3 separate cases during his appearances. He is accused of accepting goods worth tens of thousands of dollars from a billionaire Hollywood producer in exchange for assistance for his personal and business interests. He is also accused of promoting advantageous regulations for media moguls in exchange for favorable coverage for himself and his family. For his part, the Zionist Prime Minister claims the charges are a witch hunt orchestrated by a hostile media in a biased judiciary aimed at toppling his long tenure. Netanyahu is the first sitting Israeli leader to testify as a defendant in a criminal trial. And the South Korean opposition announced it will submit a motion before the National Assembly to impeach Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who currently acts as the country's acting president. Precisely, the parliamentary spokesman for the opposition Democratic Party, Yoon Sung-gun, revealed that the media on Tuesday that he will present the motion over the course of the week to be voted on between Saturday and Sunday. The measure will be presented in retaliation for Han's refusal to ratify 2 special investigations into ousted President Yoon Suk-yeol and the First Lady, following the declaration of martial law on December 3rd, which triggered a serious political crisis in the nation. And in Turkey, at least 12 workers were killed and 4 others resulted injured in an explosion at a munitions factory in the western province of Balıkesir on Tuesday. In this regard, authorities informed that for the incident at the factory, which had been producing explosive for years, there is no evidence leading to sabotage, so the case is being treated as a possible accident. The provincial governor reported that the explosion occurred in the encapsulation section of the factory, causing the collapse of the building. In this context, the injured were taken to the hospital, while the existence of additional victims in the area is unknown so far. In the news, in France, a new cabinet was elected after Prime Minister François Bayrou announced his composition and the previous administration was dismissed in a historic vote of no confidence. After days of negotiations, Bayrou formed a government made up of members of the outgoing team, dominated by conservatives and new figures from the center-left. One of the most urgent tasks for the new team will be to draw up a budget for 2025. The new cabinet takes office after months of political deadlock and pressure from financial markets to reduce France's colossal debt. Bayrou replaced Michel Barnier, who resigned earlier this month after a historic no-confidence vote over the budget forced him to step down along with members of his cabinet. Also in France, in Paris in this case, the Eiffel Tower reopened after a brief evacuation caused by a fire alarm this Tuesday. Some 1,200 tourists were evacuated from the iconic monument, but the situation was resolved without incident. Authorities report that the fire was caused by one of the elevator's cables overheating at around 10:30 a.m. local time. The Eiffel Tower has experienced one major fire in the past. The January 1956 blaze in its TV control room caused significant damage to its top section. The Parisian landmark is visited by an average of 15,000 to 25,000 visitors daily. Now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Cuban government continues to achieve social justice goals despite the U.S. economic blockade imposed against the Cuban people. In this regard, while speaking at the 65th anniversary ceremony of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, President Miguel Díaz-Canel highlighted the achievements of the Cuban Revolution in the international arena by positively influencing Latin America and the Caribbean and other regions. The Cuban leader pointed out that the world expects from the nation an active role in defense of social struggles against imperialism and all its forms of discrimination. Díaz-Canel also underlined that several international observers, both friends and adversaries of the country, recognize the influence that the island has had at a global level.
Cuba has been and continues to be a beacon of dignity. The difficult times we experience will demand from you and from all of us to be more and more at the level of the heroic people to which we have the privilege of belonging. For those people who deserve everything, let us work tirelessly and creatively for victory. Homeland or death, we will triumph.
And after a magnitude 6.1 earthquake hit eastern Cuba on Monday, authorities report no human life losses but severe damage to infrastructures. According to the National Seismological Service, the earthquake was registered at 1 a.m. on December 3rd with a depth of 9 kilometers and located at about 35 kilometers southwest of the town of Chivirico in Santiago de Cuba. As a result, 90 houses and 4 state buildings suffered damages, with reports of perceptibility being issued from provinces such as Camagüey and Ciego de Ávila. In addition, about 300 aftershocks were recorded. The event became the perceptible earthquake number 137 registered in Cuba so far in 2024. And torrential rains battered northwestern Haiti, leading to flash floods which brought about at least 7 fatalities and another 10 injured. Authorities specified that about 11,000 buildings have been flooded. Subsequently, deaths have been reported en route Trois Graces, Cuaymoses, and Mont Bethel areas. In addition, data are still being collected on locations, damages to houses, schools, private offices, and other facilities in various areas of Port Paper City. In this context, the Hydrometeorological Unit of Haiti issued Monday a flood alert for the departments of Nord and Grand Anse. In Haiti, also, the government has announced a plan to help the most vulnerable households in the midst of the climate crisis the country is experiencing. With the aim of satisfying some of the basic needs of the population, the government will launch a special program at the end of the year to support the most vulnerable. They emphasize that priority will be given to the elderly, the disabled, and single mothers. Likewise, in addition to the strategies outlined, they announced that mobile canteens and soup kitchens will be installed to provide food to people in different communities. And in Mozambique, the death toll from the passage of Cyclone Chido rose to 120. The number of people affected now stands at 687,630 in the provinces of Cabo Delgado, Nampula, Niassa, Tete, and Sofala. Cyclone Chido, which struck the north of the country on December 15th with winds of up to 260 kilometers per hour and 250 millimeters of rain in just 24 hours, also left 868 people injured. The hurricane destroyed at least 155,532 homes, 52 medical centers, and 250 schools. It also affected 89 public buildings, 338 electricity pylons, 2,700 kilometers of power lines, and 11 mobile phone masts, among other material damage. And the Constitutional Council of Mozambique ratified on Monday the electoral victory of the Frelimo Party's presidential candidate Daniel Chapo in the October elections. This way, the authority confirmed the candidate of the ruling Mozambique Liberation Front Party obtained 65% of votes, revising downward the initial results of almost 71%. For his part, Chapo's main adversary in polls, opposition Venancio Mondlane, obtained an upward revision with 24.19% of the votes. The confirmation of the candidate's victory comes after 2 months of street protests sparked after Mondlane's party claimed Frelimo had rigged the election results. According to reports by local NGO, the civil unrest cost the lives of 130 people, mostly those of demonstrators who were gunned down. We now have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Ecuador, Vice President Veronica Abad denounced that President Daniel Noboa's government staged a coup d'etat that threatens democracy. Abad detailed that President Noboa intends to undermine democracy after ordering the immediate transfer of the Vice President to Turkey. The move comes after the prosecutor's office overturned the sanction imposed by the Labor Ministry that suspended her from office. Likewise, Veronica Abad recalled that she was unable to enter the offices of the Vice Presidency because it was fenced off and surrounded by military personnel, which goes against the Constitution, the law, and democracy in Ecuador. Also, in Ecuador, the justice system will probe the disappearance of 4 minors detained by the military in Guayaquil and will grant constitutional guarantees. The parents of the 4 missing teenagers will testify before court to determine if the minors were victims of forced disappearance or human rights violations. Officials from the Armed Forces, National Police, Ministry of the Interior, Ministry of Defense, and the Ombudsman's Office are also summoned to this hearing. The state has to investigate and explain what happened to brothers Josue and Ismael Arroyo, Saul Arboleda, and Steven Medina, aged between 11 and 15. The minors disappeared on December 8th in the city of Guayaquil, with Defense Minister Giancarlos Lofredo confirming in the aftermath their detention by the military. And in El Salvador, ruling deputies passed on Monday afternoon new mining law that approved mining exploitation, which was banned since 2017. Social and environmental organizations gathered in front of the Legislative Assembly to show their rejection of the mining law and also point out environmental and social risk for the population. Protesters assured that they will continue with the demonstrations as pressure on the government to express their dissatisfaction. The decision was made despite protests from the Council of the University of El Salvador, which has expressed its concern about the environmental impact that the reactivation of metal mining would generate in the country.
Queremos pedir a las autoridades de nuestro
We want to ask the authorities of our country, both the government and the legislature, not to approve a new mining law that would allow mining exploitation in our territory. On the contrary, the law that was approved in 2017 that protects our country from all mining exploitation should remain in force. We are facing a life and death situation. It is not a partisan political discussion. It is about the protection of people's lives, people's health. That is why we made this request, and that is why the Church raises its voice for the benefit of all, on behalf of these people who have suffered so much over time, over the years, since the conquest, and in the name of God Himself. We ask you not to allow mining exploitation, which would take away the precious metals of our country, once again stripping us of them, but this time leaving in their place a large amount of lethal poison that will cause much harm to the population.
Likewise, the leader of the Santa Marta community, Peter Natareno, pointed out that the people is still outraged at the approval of the new mining law.
Mucha indignación, o sea, la gente está indignada después de...
There is a lot of indignation. People are outraged after, in our case, almost 2 years of struggle for the release of the 5 environmentalists, community leaders. Then the unconstitutional president that we have spoke, saying that they are going to open mining in this country, which has outraged a people who fought for many years, even having environmental martyrs in 2009, having people who fought and had to take refuge in Europe, such as journalists from Radio Victoria, among other organizations that were exiled.
Meanwhile, in Colombia, former drug trafficker Fabio Ochoa Vázquez arrived at Bogotá's El Dorado airport on Monday after serving a 23-year prison sentence in the United States for drug trafficking. Former associate of the late drug lord Pablo Escobar, Ochoa Vázquez was released by the U.S. Justice Department on December 3rd. The 67-year-old former Medellin cartel leader arrived accompanied by U.S. agents who turned him over to Colombian immigration officials. Vázquez was convicted by a U.S. jury in May 2003 of conspiracy to distribute cocaine and attempted drug smuggling in connection with the shipment of up to 30 tons of cocaine per month into the United States between 1997 and 1999. In Mexico, a characteristic element during the Christmas season is the piñatas. Our correspondent Antonia Aranda visited the International Piñata Fair, where cultural richness is fused with traditions. Let's see.
In the municipality of Acolman in the state of Mexico, 500 years ago the Augustinian friars started the tradition of piñatas. Tradition has it that they were initially clay pots decorated with colored paper. Their purpose was to teach elements of Catholic doctrine in a fun way, according to this chronicler.
Here there was a feast dedicated to Huitzilopochtli. It was called Panquetzalizli, and at the beginning of that feast that lasted 20 days, they hung from a wood at the entrance of the temple, a pot full of feathers and precious stones. Then the Augustinian friars, to eradicate these festivities, used the same clay pot, but instead of filling them with feathers and precious stones, they filled them with fruit.
The municipality of Acolman is proud to be considered the birthplace of piñatas in Mexico, which is why it is celebrating the 39th edition of the International Piñata Fair. Highlights Lord, 4th generation of piñata artisans.
To speak of Acolman
in the state of Mexico is to speak of piñatas. It makes me proud that I continue to preserve an identity in my municipality, that when people hear about Acolman they think about the piñatas, and above all continue to preserve the traditions and culture of our country.
In Acolman, more than 100 families are dedicated to making piñatas with different materials and shapes. Piñatas are a characteristic element of the Mexican festivities, but they have transcended borders.
The piñata came to Peru through television. You see it on television, in the movies, in cartoons, and in the celebrations as well. Then Mexicans start arriving to live in Peru and start making piñatas, therefore there are piñatas in Peru thanks to the Mexicans, who started making them there. It is mainly used in festivities, it is used for children's parties also.
La Feria Internacional de la Piñata también incluye.
The International Piñata Fair also includes gastronomic and cultural activities. The tradition of piñatas is a clear example of the creativity and joy with which Mexicans celebrate Christmas and other holidays.
Antonio Aranda, TeleSUR, Ciudad de México.
And Venezuela's Executive Vice President Lourdes Rodriguez led an event to deliver gifts to children in El Payo Parish as part of the Merry Christmas 2024 plan. The Vice President said that this year more than 14 million toys have been distributed throughout the country, while she affirmed that 2024's greatest achievement is the country's peace. Rodriguez highlighted that President Nicolas Maduro, together with the people, are closing the year with a positive outcome, affirming that the wounds caused by the blockade have been defeated. The year 2025 will be one of greater hope. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Happy holidays and thank you for watching.